Good day, folks. Time for a roundup on foreign policy. Just like the G20 meeting and could not get their act together because of the foreign ministers and the finance ministers couldn't get their act together because they couldn't come up with a joint statement. The reason they couldn't come up with a joint statement was obviously Russia's aggression and attack against Ukraine. Same thing, I'm finding SCO, I'm seeing these meetings. We just had Rajnath Singh going hammer and tong when the defense minister of China and India met. And I'm seeing the same thing happening now that the foreign ministers have arrived. And we are having to play the same dance between Bilawal Bhutto, the foreign minister of China, all kinds of statements, nothing. Russia trying to again play on the trust factor. Hey, but headline when Pakistan's in India, right? You gotta give it to them, right? Or you gotta give it to the guys who want to upset the apple cart. 5 soldiers killed in blast by terrorists in Rajouri forest. And this is the thing. This is the second one where 5 soldiers have been killed, right? And this has happened right when this whole issue is going. Jaishankar is going hammer and tong at Bilawal. And as far as China is concerned, India stresses on LAC normalcy in China talks. Bilawal lands in Goa. So we continue to do that. Restore status quo along LAC for normal ties India to China. Leaders discuss expansion of group. I'm not sure why. India-China ties are not normal and won't be so till peace on border returns, says Jaishankar. This is the funniest part, and he goes, so why it's funny. India and Russia discuss ties in trade in national currency. This is a report by Dipanjan Roy. Now, what are they discussing? Especially when you have this, right? Which is in another newspaper. The ruble-rupee trade plan between Russia and India hits a roadblock over conversion issues. And then you have this. Russia has billions of rupees in Indian banks it can't use, says Lavrov, because a dimwit of a Lavrov out India, they don't want to import anything from India. That's the bottom line. That means there really can't be a two-way trade between either India and Russia, and India and China will always be in imbalance. So if you look at a foreign picture, a foreign import-export difference, the deficit we have, you'll see it is primarily driven by Russia for oil and energy and fertilizers and maybe defense, and China for everything else, right? Can't have normal ties, a border situation of normal, India to China. Then here we come. India, Pak face off over terrorism, hogs limelight at Shanghai co-op meeting. And this is just when we've lost another 5 soldiers, right? Chinese Minister Quint takes indirect pot shots at US, Russia directly. Let's not get caught up in weaponizing terrorism for diplomatic point scoring, says Bilawal. Oh well. Bilawal, Jaishankar shake hands at SCO dinner, bilateral meet, unlikely, not going to achieve anything. But Bilawal did, right? In India, Bilawal talks peace, says trip focus on SCO only. And not only that, did you see the picture? He gets to meet Lavrov, right? SCO bilateral focus on border with China, trust-based talks with Russia. Trust-based, I'm not sure what we are building, what kind of trust we are building, right? But Pakistan's old ploy, and this is Saeed, the General Hasnain writing right after the first 5 soldiers we lost. Poonch terror attack is another instance of low-intensity conflict. Delhi must not respond in haste. I'm not sure what we're going to do. The strategic community. So the point I'm trying to make is, guys, in 2019 when we had this cross-border strike that we did and the airstrike, obviously hasn't changed anything because it's not been a deterrent. So what people fed this hogwash, that, hey, this is what it's going to do, we notch it up a level, Pakistan's not going to be afraid. Doesn't seem like, right? Somebody's not listening there, right? And then what Raja Mohan writes rightly, internal chaos, external crisis. Pakistan's foreign policy, including meaningful change in ties with India, cannot be reconfigured until there's a domestic consensus on its external orientation. True. Same thing for India and Pakistan, true from our side. Although he's out of power, Imran's dominance of street politics has severely limited the space for the current civilian ruling coalition, which includes Zardari's Pakistan People Party and the Sharif's Muslim League, to take bold new initiative towards India. Pakistan will need a lot of time and space to get its domestic act together and rebuild a foreign policy consensus. Is there anything that India can do until then? One priority for Delhi must be to sustain the valuable and back channel to the army leadership in Rawalpindi. Weakened though it is, the Pakistan army remains the only credible interlocutor for India in the near term. Surprise, surprise, right? But But China, she is getting tougher, right? And just like, I mean, India seems to be moving in the same mood. China exit bans multiply as she tightens grip, and here also is happening very similar. China's factory output shrinks as concerns over recovery linger, and this is going to keep happening, right? Lanka bus network of Chinese involved in online fraud. US panel says State Department to declare India country of particular concern. And here's where our politics of targeting and others, so even what's happening now in Manipur, since it's become a religious issue, right? Hindu versus Christians. Got to watch this space. Rajnath lays foundation stone of key Coast Guard facility in Maldives. This is one place which has landed back in our lap. We cannot let go. Elections are coming up. Let's hope Yameen doesn't win. Rajnath talks defense cooperation with Maldivian counterpart. Defense minister hands over fast patrol vessel landing craft to Maldives. But China on its way to India, the only place where he seems to have some stability, China's foreign minister visits Myanmar ahead of India trip. And this is an important move for India. Bangladesh gives India permanent access to ports. This is India. LAC Rao enters fourth year, impasse persists. It's time we have to take a step, right? Chinese foreign minister to visit India for SCO meet. Dan Jaishankar likely to meet China counterpart today. That's happened. And China's maneuvers in Indo-Pacific, role in West Asia, a cause for alarm. China could even help Iran realize its nuclear ambition. India's interest in Chabahar port could be jeopardized. That could be. And this is the funny part, right? India destroyer, but India is trying to make some presence felt, right? But that means it has to invest in the Navy. India's destroyer stealth frigate in South China Sea, where we are upping, and this is where should be looking for exports, right? Exports to UAE may rise 50 billion by FY27. This is the other thing that we should keep our eye on. Japan, South Korea revive stalled economic talks. This is the alliance for building behind the United States to focus on. You got it. NSA discusses Iran's SCO entry with President Raisi, but the more important part is this. USA NSA to meet up with India, Saudi, UAE counterparts. Now, this is what's happening in the Middle East. Despite what China is trying to do, is we got to stay focused, right? India, a capital idea. It says, rest assured, the Biden administration is enthusiastic about India, and statements by US officials at the summit were testimony to the fact. Rear Admiral Eileen Law-Basher, White House Senior Director for South Asia, who has served in New Delhi, called the partnership a force for global good as she recounted the growing policy alignment on major issues. Siddharth Iyer, a senior Pentagon official, stressed the US was ready to help increase India's defense manufacturing capacity. PS, words are great, but GE engines rolling out is even better. That's the important part. We got to get those engines in. But while this is happening, Ashley Tellis thinks that, maybe rightly, that, and he's given an interview to Karan Thapar, that the US is making a wrong choice thinking that India is going to be out there and up there. Well, time will only tell, but what Pradap Dalsamta, right, the new abnormal holds. For years, China has nudged the boundaries of acceptable aggression on the premise it can force a settlement on a new normal. And this is where India seems to have resisted. The New Delhi response conveys the pivot in India's China policy that is willing to put it out there to the people. Now the people, it seems, are the counterpunch as far as China is concerned. I think India, in terms of militarily, needs to go do a little bit more than what it's done. It just can't sit on its haunches and keep expecting that China will roll back, because it won't. It just won't, folks. 3 cheers and Jai Hind.